Hey, and welcome to Board with Life News for May 31st. Today I'm going to talk about Heaven and Ale, Atlas Enchanted Cards, Raiders of the North Sea, an expansion for automobiles, and the Kickstarter for Deep Space D6. Let's get to it. Hey, I'm Chris. Welcome to Board of Life News. Up first is Heaven and Ale. This is going to be coming out at Essen this year from Eggertspiel. It's designed by Michael Kiesling and Andreas Schmidt, so obviously some really solid designers there. In the game, you're going to be monks in a brewery brewing beer, which is, I guess, not a common theme. It's just a theme that I remember Eurogames doing quite a bit, so yeah. It's listed on BGG as a tile placement game, even though the description sounds more like a worker placement game, so I'm pretty interested in it. I've seen some pictures of the player boards, and they're very reminiscent of Castles of Burgundy, which is one of my favorite games, so I'm very interested in that. It says the game's all about timing, and I think you're kind of building an engine. I don't know. It seems very Euro-y, but very up my alley, so I'm pretty excited about that. So, yeah, coming out at Essen this year. Renegade Games has announced Atlas Enchanted Lands. This is a new light card game for 2 to 4 players by Alex Cavern, who, if you watch the show very often, you know I'm a big-time fan of Alex Cavern's designs. He doesn't have a ton of published games, but I've played a lot of his prototypes. He's one of my favorite kind of like light mid-weight Euro game designers. In it, you have cards that can either be played as time or they can be played as place, and you're trying to create sets, but you're bidding on which sets you think will be completed first, and that's actually how you get your points. So it seems like an interesting, very light, kind of simple game with some strategic depth and some interest there. I haven't played this one of Alex Cavern's designs, but as I said earlier, I basically love all his designs, so I'm really excited about this. And this, I think, is coming out fall 2017. I forgot to check. Maybe Essen. We'll see. More news from Renegade. They announced that they'll be picking up Raiders of the North Sea for North American distribution. This game was just nominated for the Kinnerspiel Award like a week and a half ago, and it's a unique worker placement game where you're running raids on different villages and stuff because you're Vikings, because that's what you do. I didn't get a chance to play it at BGG Spring. I really wanted to, but the tables were always full, and it's a 90-minute game, so there was always kind of like a queue of people backed up. I heard a lot of people that did play it that were really fond of it. It looks really great on a table. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. They also announced, Renegade, that they will be releasing its expansion along with it, which I don't think is out yet in Germany, so they'll probably release those about the same time, and this one is fall 2017. AEG announced an expansion for automobiles, the bag building racing game. It's called Racing Season. It's going to be out just around the corner, June 21st. The expansion is going to add 2 new card types, both managers and drivers. It's going to add new effects cubes, new tracks, and you're going to have the ability to race over the course of an entire season instead of just a race. So that's pretty exciting. I quite like automobiles as a bag building game, and it's fun to see it get expanded. This week's Kickstarter is for Deep Space D6. This is a solo worker placement game where you play the role of a starship captain stranded in space, and you're assigning your crew to various tasks as your ship is under attack from all sorts of different stuff. This is an interesting game. It was originally a print and play, and then it got a very small release via Kickstarter in 2015, I believe, and so they're printing a reprint of it now. It's one of the most kind of well-regarded games that came from print and play, and one of the most well-regarded solo games out there. So much so that it already has over $100,000 worth of backers on Kickstarter, which is pretty crazy for a solo game that really doesn't have a lot of... They did a really good job with the aesthetic, but it's a very simple, clean aesthetic. Very reminiscent of like 60s, 70s, kind of like sci-fi book covers and stuff like that. So yeah, exciting to see that game doing well. It is $20 right now on Kickstarter, and there's actually a mini expansion too. So if you already own the game, you can head over there, and that is $6. All right, that's the news for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you follow me on social media. I'm at Chris Bryan Games on Instagram and Twitter. And make sure you check out my Patreon, because Patreon is great. All right, this week's question comes from @Chromuses. Someday I'll learn how to pronounce his handle. And he asks, how important is blind playtesting when designing a game? How do you handle playtests? So, blind playtesting is super important. That being said, I don't do it. I don't do it because I think when it gets really important is at the rulebook stage. You need to make sure that you can hand somebody a rulebook with no help whatsoever, and they can completely teach the game from the rulebook. I've never gotten to that stage in a game where my rulebook needs to be that good because I'm pitching to publishers, and that's kind of like part of... I'll work with the publishers to get that polish on the rulebook, whereas the rulebooks I give to publishers don't have to be that great because they can just text me questions or whatever. I think it's really effective. I think that you definitely want to blind playtest. I've had games that have been blind playtested and that like other people went and took my games and taught them to people, but it wasn't like I then got feedback from those people. It's a hard thing to kind of organize. I definitely have strangers playtest my games, which is very helpful to make sure that they're simple and or easy to understand and people are enjoying them and the different types of people who will enjoy them. But yeah, playtesting is certainly a thing that I wish I had the ability to do more of. I do most of my games, I solo playtest a whole bunch where I just take on different roles because I want them to be good enough that they're at least fun when I take them to other people, because I don't want to kind of like slog through the really boring, bad, broken gameplay stuff. I want it to be pretty good. Every time I do playtests, that really accelerates my design process. Like I always find a bunch of stuff to change and interesting suggestions and interesting ideas. So it's certainly very helpful. It's not just a thing that you need to do in order to like make sure the game isn't broken. It is a very helpful thing to get like new eyes on a project that you're usually too close to really see some of the problems or see some of the possibilities with. So yeah, I mean, it's important, but I don't do it. So I mean, that's the catch-22 there. But I definitely, when games are closer to actually coming out, I think that's when it's really important just to make sure that everything is understandable and you have a well-written rule book and things like that. So yeah, that's that answer. All right. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next week.